Twin foals and classic resolution, birth naming in the enduring heart of Lucy's chaos. I have always believed that the true measure of Lucy Carmichael's world is not how carefully it avoids chaos but how completely it insists on transforming chaos into something that feels against all reason like home. The final movement of this composite script delivers that transformation in its purest form. The pregnant mare, who was never supposed to live on a second-floor patio, reaches her time. The household that was never designed for equine midwifery rises to the occasion with boiling water, steel wool, horseshoes and the particular brand of panicked tenderness that only Lucy can generate. And when the ordeal is over, there are not one but two new lives in the world, twin foals immediately, and inevitably named Rosie and Lucy. The labor sequence is a comic symphony of misplaced preparation and genuine care. Lucy, who has spent the preceding days inventing the role of horse midwife from memory and improvisation, now moves through the classic rituals of human childbirth with only the slightest adjustments for species. Water is boiled, though no one can quite remember why. Blankets and pillows are assembled. The veterinarian is summoned. Rosie floats through the preparations, offering aristocratic encouragement and the occasional impractical suggestion. Mr. Mooney, who has by this point abandoned all pretense of remaining a mere financial observer, finds himself declared a temporary father figure and responds with the dazed compliance of a man who has finally accepted that resistance is useless. Ball plays Lucy's anxiety with a beautiful mixture of competence and terror. She has never done this before. She is determined to do it perfectly. The gap between those two facts is where the comedy lives. I still remember the particular quality of suspense I felt as a child during these minutes. The episode had already taught me that Lucy's plans rarely unfold as designed, and the prospect of a birth under her supervision carried both the promise of miracle and the near certainty of complication. Yet the script for once allows the central event to succeed. The mare delivers. The foals are healthy. The moment of revelation that there are two of them is played with a quiet, almost reverent joy that still catches me off guard. After so many schemes that collapsed under their own elaborate weight, the episode simply permits something to go right. The twins arrive. They are named for the two women who refused to let their mother be sold for glue. The continuity of care is complete. The naming itself is one of the most quietly moving gestures in the entire composite. Rosie and Lucy. The countess who brought the problem and the widow who enlarged her life to solve it are now permanently inscribed in the next generation of a bloodline that was never supposed to continue under these circumstances. I think often of the emotional logic at work. Lucy has spent the preceding days accumulating identities: secretary talent, scout romantic strategist, stuntwoman, emergency stable manager. In the final moments, she becomes something simpler and more lasting, the co-namesake of a living creature that exists because she refused to accept an unacceptable outcome. The foals will grow up carrying her name. In the world of the series, that is a form of immortality more reliable than any leopard coat. What follows the birth is less a traditional resolution than a gentle settling. The immediate crisis has passed. The financial pressure has been eased by Mooney's offer to purchase the foals. The patio, against all architectural intention, has become a successful maternity ward. Rosie remains for the time being a permanent if floating presence in the household. And Lucy, who began this long narrative arc, trying to secure a single glamorous garment, ends it as the co-matriarch of a tiny, improbable herd. The leopard coat is never explicitly revisited in the closing moments, and that silence feels deliberate. The coat was a desire. The twins are a responsibility, and therefore, in Lucy's moral universe, more important. I have always found the emotional aftertaste of this ending particularly complex. On the surface, it is pure sitcom triumph. The disaster has been averted. The animals are safe. The human relationships have been deepened by shared ordeal. Beneath the surface, it is something more ambiguous and more true. Lucy's life has not become simpler. It has become permanently more complicated. She now shares her home with a countess, a mare and two foals. Mr. Mooney's oversight of her finances has only grown more necessary and more fraught. The quiet California existence she might once have imagined has been replaced by a daily reality that includes hoofprints on the patio and the ongoing negotiation of what the lease does and does not permit. The episode does not pretend this is an uncomplicated victory. It simply presents it as the only victory available to a woman who cannot stop enlarging her circle of care. The larger pattern of the composite script comes into final focus here. Across every sequence, the medium-hand secretary, the mangled theme song, the neighbor with the moon ballad, the stuck heel and the engineered laundry room meeting the cake in the dryer, the sabotaged refrigerator, the chandelier swing, the 4 a.m. arrival of the Countess Lucy has moved through the world according to a single consistent principle. When she encounters need, she meets it. When she encounters beauty, she champions it. When she encounters injustice, even the small injustice of a horse bound for the glue factory, she rearranges her life to oppose it. The methods are almost always chaotic. The results are almost always mixed. The impulse itself remains pure. In the birth of the twin foals, that impulse receives its most literal embodiment. New life has entered the world because Lucy Carmichael refused to look away. I think often of the 9-year-old child who first watched these episodes on a soft-edged television in a quiet living room. That child did not yet have the language for what she was receiving, but she understood it in her body. She understood that the redhead on the screen was allowed to want things, coats and songs and evenings with handsome pilots and the simple dignity of a horse that did not deserve to die. She understood that wanting was not a moral failure, even when the methods of obtaining became spectacularly unwise. She understood above all that the world was large enough to accommodate both the desire and the disaster, and that the disaster itself could become the raw material of something oddly like grace. The adult who writes these words has watched the same sequences through decades of personal change. The laughter is still immediate. The tenderness has only deepened. Lucy Carmichael remains the most persuasive argument I know for the value of remaining open to complication. Her life is never tidy. Her schemes almost never succeed on their own terms. And yet the life that results, the life shared with disappointed songwriters and injured stuntmen and broke countesses and pregnant mares, feels richer and more densely human than any carefully managed alternative. The twin foals are only the final proof. The world keeps offering Lucy more than she planned for. She keeps saying yes. There is a quiet cultural endurance in this ending that deserves acknowledgement. The Lucy Show, like its predecessor, understood that the American sitcom could be more than a weekly reset to domestic equilibrium. It could be a record of a particular kind of female consciousness, restless, generous, easily wounded, incapable of remaining neutral in the face of another creature's need. The twin foals, named for the two women who saved their mother, carry that consciousness forward in the most literal way possible. They will grow up in a world that was never designed for them, under the protection of people who were never trained for the responsibility, and they will be loved with a ferocity that no practical consideration could ever have predicted. In the moral universe of the series, that is what success looks like. When I reach the final image of the composite Lucy, standing in the soft aftermath of birth, the new foals breathing beside their mother, the Countess and the banker and the entire improbable household assembled in the early light, I feel the same soft astonishment I felt as a child. The story should not have ended this way. The horse should not have lived on the patio. The twins should not have been born under these circumstances. The woman at the center of it all should not have been able to hold so much chaos inside a single human life without breaking. And yet here they all are. The chaos has not been resolved. It has been metabolized into care. The care has been given names. The names are Rosie and Lucy. I was 9 years old the first time I watched the twins arrive. I am much older now. The laughter is quieter. The gratitude is larger. Lucille Ball gave the world many gifts, but the one I return to most often is this: the permission to remain open, to remain ridiculous, to remain willing to swing from the chandelier or boil the water, or name the foal after yourself if that is what the moment requires. The world of the series is long over. The woman who embodied it is gone. And still, every time I return to these pages, I hear the same quiet affirmation. Yes, the hecticer the better. The story is not over. The patio is still large enough. There is always room for one more life.